You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this. The spring of 1883 would have seemed like any other year in Jakarta, Indonesia, were it not for the loud sounds of explosions in the distance.
I know what this is.
Where are you going with this?
Now, May 19th, steam started to rise from the awakening Krakatoa volcano.
Oh. Oh.
So earthquakes had started just a few years earlier, but the volcano was entering a new phase of waking up. Jakarta was 100 miles away, but explosions could be heard as an eruption of ash blew an estimated 20,000 feet into the sky. And this was just a precursor of things to come later on that year.
Oh, yeah.
I have to
Nearly
take this off my list.
a month later, on June 16th, another eruption occurred. This one was more violent. Instead of just one column rising from the stratovolcano, now there were two.
What?
Like two different, venting spots where there was things coming out, like ash.
Yeah.
And this volcano at the time, by the way, Krakatoa, was known to have 3 different sort of cinder cones on top where things were sort of active spots. Two of the 3 were now active. In early August, Dutch topographical engineer Captain H.J.G. Fezenaar, I believe you would say his name. We're going to go with it. Came to the Krakatoa Islands to investigate, and he reported that there were now 3 major ash columns rising from the volcanoes that went from June to August. He actually set foot on Krakatoa and reported that all vegetation had been destroyed, and there were only tree stumps remaining. There was also, at this point, 2 feet of ash covering the island.
Of course.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a
Why
lot of
are you
ash
stepping
already.
foot on the island? Why?
People do things. So no, that sounded like there had been some pretty serious stuff going on there. But the worst was, of course, yet to come. If you know anything about this story, eruptions intensified on August 25th, and by the 26th, the volcano entered the history books as one of the most talked about volcanic eruptions in human history. By 2 p.m. that day, an ash cloud was rising 27 kilometers into the sky.
Wow.
So that's 88.5 or 88,500 feet. Okay. Now, your commercial airliner is usually flying at about maybe 30,000 feet.
Right.
This was 88,500. That's 16 miles high. And there, indeed.
Yeah.
There were continuous eruptions, explosions, and even tsunamis that hit Java and Sumatra. Because this thing was just starting to go nuts.
It's like the fireworks locker getting ignited.
Yeah.
Go big or go home.
This was the beginning of the end. Now, for those of you who have vaguely heard of Krakatoa, you might know that a very large explosion is coming. But what you might not know is that it was actually there were actually 4 large explosions, not one.
Oh.
So the third is the best known, but there was 4 of them over the course of August 27th, which is a few days later, the next day. So the first was at 5:30 a.m. The second was at 6:44 a.m. And both of these were accompanied by very dangerous tsunamis that spread out through the area and caused a lot of damage. The third explosion, the one that everyone has heard of, was at 10:02 a.m.
Oh, more people are awake then.
I think everybody was awake already.
Everybody was awake, Rachel.
Okay.
Everybody was very much awake in the area. This explosion was so violent and so loud, it was heard unbelievably far away. The blast was heard on the island of Rodriguez, which is near Mauritius, which is 3,000 miles away. It was also heard in Perth, Australia, which Rachel you talked about in your last episode. And Perth, Australia was 3,110 miles away. Now, we probably maybe can't picture like where in Indonesia Krakatoa was and where Perth, Australia is if you're not from that area. So I'm going to put it into a couple other ways to think about it. All right. So for those not from that part of the world, that would be like hearing a sound in Dublin, a sound from Dublin, Ireland, in New York City.
Yeah.
So that's real far. Or another way, imagine if we want to talk volcanoes, imagine that Mauna Loa on Hawaii exploded instead. That explosion could have been heard in Denver, Colorado. It's like, oh my.
That's okay.
My.
Okay.
So another way of trying to put the context of how big this explosion was is to talk about TNT. So a stick of TNT packs quite a punch, but now picture 2,204 pounds of TNT. That's quite a lot. That's a metric ton or 1,000 kilos.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So 1 ton of TNT is a lot. You want to be anywhere near 1 metric ton of TNT going on.
Not even close.
I want to talk bigger though. Let's talk about kilotons. That's 1,000 tons. To visualize that, picture not a stick of TNT. I almost said dynamite. TNT and dynamite are different.
They are.
A stick of TNT that is not a stick, a cube. Picture a cube that is 27.8 feet on each side. Okay, that's a kiloton of TNT.
Oh gosh, that's
big.
At least that's about 5 Rachels.
Yeah. But it's cubic, okay? So it's
right.
It's
it's
the
5 Rachels on each side.
Yeah. Now the little boy atomic bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima had a 15 kiloton yield. So picture 15 of those 27-foot cubes of TNT all going off at once. That's how big that first atomic bomb was.
Yeah.
Not first used in war. Back in episode 44, Victoria talked about the Tunguska event and how powerful that explosion was.
Yeah.
Tunguska blast was 15,000 kilotons. So 15,000 of those 27-foot cubes. And keep in mind, a kiloton is already 1,000 tons. So Tunguska was 15 million kilos of TNT.
Yeah, the mind boggles.
That's just, but we're going bigger, all right? Or we can also express this, by the way, in megatons, which is 1,000 kilotons. So 15 megatons of TNT was the destruction from
Hiroshima.
No. That from
Tunguska.
Tunguska.
Okay.
Tunguska was 15 megatons, and that was, like you talked about in the episode, hugely devastating. It was like 800 square miles of trees knocked down or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So the largest human-made nuclear blast ever was the Soviet Union's Tsar Bomba, which was mostly about intimidation, frankly. It had a yield of 50 megatons, which is just hard to even imagine how big this bomb was.
Kirk,
but all of that,
the back of my brain is just
pales
tingling.
in comparison. Pales in comparison.
My head, my brain is already like tingling about this. This is so many numbers.
It's a lot of numbers, I know.
This is
Krakatoa
so large.
is estimated to have had the force of 200 megatons of TNT.
Wow.
So to try to back up to something that doesn't make sense, but at least give some context. The bomb that was dropped in Hiroshima, to compare it to that, it would be like 13,333 of those all going off at once in one spot.
Wow.
Yeah. It's amazing. The pressure wave from the explosion ruptured the eardrums of sailors who were 40 miles away.
No.
Barographs, which is essentially like a barometer that records air pressure on tape, it recorded this pressure wave as it encircled the globe. Now, I do want to correct a common myth here. There's books and websites and all kinds of stuff that will claim that the pressure wave went around the world 7 times. And to be clear, that is false. That is wrong. What did happen is that there was at least one barograph that recorded the pressure wave 7 times. But remember, that wave is going around the world in all directions. So it can be recorded multiple times from multiple directions if it's encircling the globe, right? So experts think the pressure wave, actually, if you just talk about one direction only, the pressure wave went around the Earth about 3.5 times.
There's still so many times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
no.
Let's talk about ash. Ash is estimated to have gone 50 miles up into the air. And keep in mind that the lower limit of outer space is sometimes defined as 62 miles.
Oh my gosh.
So almost into space.
Uh-huh.
This final blast triggered tsunamis that were 150 feet high.
Ugh.
Oh my gosh.
And the devastation was horrific. The official death toll stands at 36,417 people, but of course is likely higher than that. Bodies floating on rafts of pumice washed up on the shores of Africa a year after the eruption.
Wow.
So the devastation was almost unimaginable. There was actually so much smoke particles in the air that there were red sunsets around the world for several years after the eruption, and actually had an effect on the climate and average temperature of the Earth.
That's nuts.
It's and I mean, I'm just touching on a bit of all the facts about this. It is so amazing, and it's certainly one of I think the best known eruptions in recorded history. But it actually isn't the largest, at least by some measures. I think it was the largest, explosion all at once.
It was the loudest.
But it's not. It was the loudest, certainly. But it isn't the largest, and I think perhaps I'll save that for another day. And we'll come back to it because there's other stories to be told. I do want to give some credit out on this one to the amazing editors over at Wikipedia who were able to pull a lot of sources together. I was able to go through to get a lot of the numbers for this, so I appreciate that work on that. But Krakatoa, if you want a good read and learn more about it, pick up some of the amazing books that are out there that go into it in so much more depth. And you can also look today. I mean, the island was destroyed in the process of this eruption, but not necessarily blown apart by the eruption. There's some debate about that. But it's a look on some of like the Google Earth today, and you can see what is there and compare it to some historical sources, and it fundamentally changed the area. However, interestingly, a new volcano called like the Child of Krakatoa is now rising from that same spot on the Earth.
There's actually a really great book about Krakatoa. I think the author's name is Simon Winchester, if I'm remembering. He wrote a bunch of other popular histories like The Professor and the Madman, and I think there's some others. And I read that book quite a number of years ago, so I'd forgotten a lot of the details, but I remember it being a good book. So you can check that out too.
That's one people can check out.
That's good.
We're going to take a short break here, and when we come back, we will have Rachel. Strange by Nature podcast is brought to you by listeners like you who have joined the Society of Strange, our membership group on over at patreon.com/strangebynature. Society of Strange members can join at one of 3 different membership levels and help support the show, and also get some fun stuff like water bottle stickers or access to super secret content. So a thank you to those who have joined already to help make this podcast possible. If you haven't joined yet, we'll see you soon over at the Society of Strange at patreon.com/strangebynature. See you soon.
So, after all of that, thanks, Kirk.
Sure, you're welcome.
I think we need to talk about something a little sweet.
Oh, that'd be great.
Sweet.
We're talking about honey?
I would love to talk about honey, and trust me, it's definitely on my list because
but not
bees.
Barf. Yay.
I'm sorry. I may have just gotten a delivery of honey today from the researchers who are doing research on our property at work, but we don't need to talk about that.
Anyway.
Because you're not talking about honey.
I am not. Today, I want to talk to you both about pineapple.
Ooh, I don't like pineapple. It's the one food I really, really dislike. Gosh. You too, all Kirk. Right. I'm surprised. And my husband also, but I feel like everybody else loves pineapple.
Oh, can't stand pineapple.
Also hate pineapple.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
We are the anti-pineapple podcast. I had no idea all three of us shared this distaste.
Now I feel even closer to the two of you.
Oh, it's so good. It's the texture. But even
it's the flavor.
I think it's an acidity thing.
It's the acidity thing, which I'll get into a little bit.
The taste reminds me of vomit.
Ooh.
Oh.
So
excellent.
There you go.
There we go. But
appetizing.
This one has been on my list for a while because I do know people who do like pineapple.
Oh, lots of people love pineapple.
Yeah.
And pineapple people will always tell you, they go, oh, you know what? You know why you don't like pineapple?
Yeah.
I know why you don't. You never had fresh pineapple. If you had fresh pineapple, you'd love it. Mm-hmm. People, I've been to Hawaii. I've had fresh pineapple. No, I'm not buying your pineapple cult.
I'm just going to avoid it because I've tried pineapple before and I don't like it. So, no. But it's a really bizarre plant. Like when you think of pineapple, like I don't know about you, but I always thought of like, or at least growing up, I always thought of pineapple growing from a tree and like hanging underneath the tree like a coconut or something like that.
Like upside down.
Upside down with with the fruit itself hanging down, kind of like bananas and things like that.
That's not how it works.
No. That is not how pineapple is grown or what that plant looks like.
That's not how the pineapple do.
No. Pineapple is an herbaceous perennial, and it grows 1 to 1.5 meters tall. So about 3 feet to almost 5 feet tall. Okay. So
less than a Rachel.
Than a pineapple plant. Less than a Rachel.
0.8 Rachels.
Exactly. It has a short, stocky stem with tough, waxy leaves, and pretty much think of like it is a monocot, so it has very similar leaves to like blades of grass. They're just tougher, a little bit larger, and grow from a central point. Okay, to help our listeners kind of picture that. Some people might be more familiar with like bromeliads. It's kind of similar to the shape of a bromeliad.
Or maybe like an agave.
Yeah, agave. That's a
good. Exactly.
Yeah.
So when it's creating its fruit, though, it usually produces about 200 flowers per plant.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Once it flowers, the individual fruits of each flower join together.
Yeah, that's what makes that pattern.
Right.
Which is what makes that pattern of the pineapple fruit. And it creates it's called a multiple fruit. So a multiple fruit, it's also called a collective fruit, and this is in botany terms, is fruiting bodies formed from a cluster of fruiting flowers, the inflorescence, which we've talked about on this podcast before. Each flower in the inflorescence, it's such a fun word, produces a fruit, but it eventually comes together and produces one large mass.
Mega fruit.
In which one mega fruit in which each flower has produced a true fruit. The leaves of the pineapple plant have sharp spines along the margins, so they're a little bit spiky and kind of hard to touch, kind of like the pineapple itself. And I will say each of those, going back to the fruit for a hot second, kind of hard to eat.
But why would you want to?
Right. Each section.
God, some people are so mad at us right now, I can tell you.
Each section of the pineapple, the kind of circular outside part that's really, really spiky, that would be one flower to give you a little more perspective of how many flowers a pineapple is made out of. Fun thing, in the wild, pineapples are primarily pollinated by hummingbirds.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And
Thanks,
then some are
hummingbirds.
actually, thanks hummingbirds.
I mean,
guess.
not
No,
thanks
I
that
mean,
much.
yeah,
Okay.
ew.
Yeah.
Right.
But certain wild pineapples are also foraged and pollinated at night by bats.
I was gonna guess
love
bats.
bats. Yeah.
I don't know why.
It's so cool. So the fruit of a pineapple, and you might actually like this, Kirk. The fruit of the pineapple is usually arranged in 2 interlocking helices, often with 8 in one direction and 13 in the other. Each is a Fibonacci number.
Ooh.
See, I thought you might like that.
Still don't want to eat it.
That's fair. As far as the history of the pineapple in general, just really quick here. The first reference in English to the pineapple fruit was in 1568 from the French of André Fivet's The New Found World, or where he refers to a fruit eaten by the Tupinamba people living near modern Rio de Janeiro, and is now believed to be the pineapple. Yes.
I didn't realize that was where its origin was.
Yeah, I didn't either.
That part of the world.
Yeah, so the wild plant...
Do we know what they called it? They probably didn't call it the pine apple, which, by the way, is a name that makes zero sense whatsoever.
Horiri is what I'm seeing, but that is horribly
It doesn't help
wrong,
me because I don't
sure.
speak that language. I don't know.
I don't either.
But
so
hey, it's better than pineapple.
It is. We don't exactly know
Almost anything's
how
better than pineapple.
we don't exactly know how it was domesticated as a plant, but the wild plant of pineapple actually originates in the Paraná Paraguay River drainages between southern Brazil and Paraguay.
Okay.
And I assume it's smaller.
Yeah, it is a little bit smaller. It's spread as a crop throughout South America, and archaeological evidence has found it as far back as 1200 to 800 BC in Peru, and 200 BC to 700 AD in Mexico, where it was cultivated by both the Mayas and the Aztecs. So it was a pretty widely distributed and stable component of the diet of a lot of Native Americans. And unfortunately, Columbus was the first one to encounter the pineapple, so maybe we have him to blame. We do have him to blame for why it is called the pineapple. He brought it back to Spain, and he called it the Pina de Indies, meaning the pine of the Indians. And
well, it looks a little like a pine cone, Kirk.
That's where the pine came from.
Oh, is that pine cone? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So
I'd rather eat a pine cone, frankly.
Well, pine nuts are delicious.
Yeah.
There you go.
Pine nuts are amazing.
Pine nuts don't taste like battery acid in your mouth.
So one thing I wanted to talk about was just the reason why some people really don't like pineapple.
Yes.
Pineapple fruits and peels have a lot of photochemicals, including gallic acid, citric acid, vanillin, ferulic acid, synaptic acid, fumaric acid, chlorogenic acid,
You can do it.
Oh gosh. I'm
going to guess it's a kind of acid.
Achin and arbutin.
Okay.
And these enzymes can cause pretty much what it comes down to is raw pineapple juice can be used as a meat marinade and a tenderizer,
Yeah,
because
it's a food that like digests you as you're eating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's slowly breaking you down, like your tongue and your mouth as you're eating it, which is why it can be really difficult to eat a lot of, although I don't know why you would want to, why you would eat a lot of pineapple at once. Your mouth feels like kind of numb or like kind of not great feeling, and this because the pineapple is trying to eat you back. The acids, just the sheer amount of acids that are in the pineapple fruit themselves, cause a lot of issues, or is digesting and like breaking down your mouth.
Yeah, and those enzymes are why it says on the box of Jell-O that you shouldn't put fresh pineapple in with your Jell-O because it won't gel because it breaks down the protein. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Overall, the pineapple has been very useful, like as a plant itself, and has been very important in many, many cultures throughout the world. Not only in the Americas, but it's also a pretty important fruit in the Philippines and in Indonesia, Thailand, and India. Not only for commercial flowers, but its leaves can be used to create fabric and other textiles.
Cool.
So it's a pretty important plant, even though not all of us like it. So that's what I have for you both today.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
When we return from our break, we'll have Victoria.
Hey, we're back from the break. I'm going to tell you about Christoph von Buren and Daniel Kronauer, who are two biologists who study a species of army ant in Costa Rica. It's called Eceton burchellii. You may have heard of army ants. Instead of building nests like most ants, they have no fixed address and they swarm over the forest floor, devouring everything in their path, mostly insects. There's a lot of exaggeration out there about, them stripping cattle to the bone, etc.
I hadn't heard that one. Okay.
Yep, I have.
I could do a whole segment about army ants, and I may do that in the future because they are fascinating and very strange, but I am here today to talk about something even stranger. So von Buren and Kronauer conduct their research by sitting in folding chairs in the jungle at night, which is when army ants conduct their raids, looking at them with flashlights to study their behavior. Which sounds
like a great time.
Really?
Sure, there was absolutely no beer involved in this research whatsoever. Yep, working here. Hold on. Yep, there goes some ants.
That's scientists for
you.
You go. So they were sitting there one evening in 2014 when they noticed something a little weird about the appearance of some of the ants. Their abdomens looked just a little different. And
oh, yes.
And then they realized that these individuals looked like they had two abdomens. What? What?
I've heard of this.
So they managed to capture a few of these insects and they put them into little glass vials, the way you do. And when they gave the vials a shake, the extra abdomen fell off. And it was a beetle.
That's just rude. What?
It's a beetle.
It's a beetle.
Oh, it was a beetle. Oh, okay.
Beetle the size and shape of an...
separating a second...
Sorry, what was that, Rachel?
Abdomen. I thought they were they shook it and they accidentally detached the second abdomen.
Like Ringo Starr just fell off.
Oh no.
Okay, that was bad.
Yeah, it was really bad. I'd like to apologize to all the listeners for my terrible Beatles joke.
All right. So a beetle the size and shape of an ant's abdomen that spends its life hitching a ride on an army ant by clamping its jaws onto the ant's waist and pretending to be its butt.
It's a life.
It's a life.
That's so silly.
The my word file of my notes for this episode is called Episode 48, Army Ant Butt Beetle.
That's pretty solid.
That's amazing.
Yes. So in an interesting twist, the species of army ant is blind. So it's not clear who the mimicry of the beetle is meant to fool exactly. Possibly predators like birds, because from above, the beetle just looks sort of like a normal abdomen. But also, the beetle has a microscopic texture that is very similar to that of the ant's exoskeleton. So, potentially, when another ant touches this beetle butt, it feels like an ant's abdomen and not a beetle, possibly.
Okay.
So that's very strange, but in some ways it's not all that surprising. Army ants have this whole ecosystem of other organisms that depend on them. So researchers estimate that this species of army ant has 550 species that basically follow them around, and 300 species that exclusively get their living from the ants.
Oh my gosh.
And this is the largest number
That's
of
crazy.
organisms dependent on one species that they've ever discovered.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
whoa.
So some birds and insects eat the ants themselves. There are birds that stay kind of on the sidelines and eat insects that are trying to escape the ant hordes.
Sure.
There are various insects that lay their eggs or inject their larvae into fleeing or injured insects.
Oh,
Also fair.
Oh,
Yeah.
that just seems so.
Unnecessary.
Yeah.
Well.
There's so like particularly there's one species of, I think it was fly, that I believe injects their larvae into cockroaches that are fleeing army ants, and something like 50 to 90% of the cockroaches that don't get eaten by the ants get parasitized by these flies.
Oh man.
Wow. Yeah, really a good way to kick something while it's down.
Yeah.
At least they're not being forced to eat pineapple.
Very true.
Yeah.
There are tiny parasitic mites that each specialize in different ant body parts to suck on.
Oh.
And there are various other species of beetles, including ones that also hitch ride on ant bodies in different places for food supply and protection. And some beetles have body shapes that mimic an ant, so a whole ant. The whole beetle looks like an ant. And if you think about how beetles normally look and how ants normally look, that is
That's
very
a feat.
hard to wrap your mind around.
Yeah, how would you not mistake that for an ant?
Yeah, you can Google some of these images. It's pretty remarkable. Yeah, so the army ant butt beetles are weird, but within their context, just a little weirder than normal.
Yeah, they're not super weird, but like that's still bizarre.
And I want to give a shout out to an article from The Atlantic from February 14th, 2017 by Ed Yong that was the main source of my information for this episode. It's a good article. You should go check it out.
All right, we'll do.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Victoria.
You're welcome. And that's all we have for you this week. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.